The Dallas Cowboys training camp has officially kicked off today in traditional fashion out there in Oxnard. Jerry Jones had some very interesting things to say, so let's go ahead and get into today's discussion. So he opened up, he spoke about Mike McCarthy and his job security. He said that the media is creating narratives when it comes to Mike McCarthy being the coach of the Dallas Cowboys. He said, and I quote, Mike McCarthy would not be sitting next to him today if he did not believe that he is the coach that can lead the Dallas Cowboys to a Super Bowl. He had many choices, but he believes that Mike McCarthy is his guy, and he's actually the reason why Jerry Jones is very optimistic in this upcoming season. And I do not know who the media personality was, right? Who that journalist was, that gentleman in the back. But he clearly shouted out, if Mike McCarthy is your guy, Jerry, why didn't you extend him, right? And then Jane Slater, she actually pushed on that same question. Like, okay, so why didn't you sign Mike McCarthy and extend him? Jerry Jones then goes on, kind of dances around the subject, saying, you guys know how contract works. And Mike McCarthy said, yeah, I like that. I like that question, right? So that's a fair question to be asked. If you believe that Mike McCarthy is the coach of the future and he's your quote-unquote guy, why not sign him for the long term? He also spoke about Dan Quinn. He said when it came to Dan Quinn this offseason, he was playing poker. He just wanted other teams to know that they would be dealing with a tough negotiator and that Dan Quinn, was going to be a Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator and that you should be afraid of that. Now, that makes zero sense because ultimately what you're doing is driving up Dan Quinn's price as a defensive coordinator, I guess. But we all know Jerry likes to put on a show. Jerry likes to talk a little bit. When a mic is in front of Jerry Jones, he just says things. And he said something as well that kind of is like, all right, bro, like cut his mic cord. He said when it came to the offseason decisions, whether you want to keep players or move on from players, there was a lot of factors that went into decision making, but one of the key factors he thought about was availability. He wanted players to be available. Now, sounds good, right? Because we always say your best ability is availability, right? But let's go down the line. They matched the offer from Denver with Randy Gregory. We all know about the contract details that really blew that deal. Randy Gregory has not been available. This was his first available season. Right, so what? That doesn't make sense to me, right? We did re-sign LVE. Well, this was the first year LVE was available. He hasn't historically been available, right? Then we signed Michael Gallup and released Amari Cooper. Michael Gallup has not been available, right? Amari Cooper has been more available than Michael Gallup. And so a lot of the things that Jerry was saying just didn't make sense. And I wish the media would have pressed a little bit more on that. But I will say this, Dallas Cowboys media, I got a lot of friends in house. You did a tremendous job. You did not let Jerry Jones dance around a lot of topics. It wasn't a lot of, circus activity going on before you got to business. Jane Slater came right out the gate about the Mike McCarthy situation in Dallas, which I definitely like. Like, hey, don't let them dance around because there's a lot of questions that need to be addressed for this upcoming season. Then Mike McCarthy kind of talked about his philosophy, right? Which kind of gives me a question mark because he says he wants to maintain the same offensive philosophy. What he wants to clean up is just the discipline, which we agree. We had a lot of penalties last year, whether it was Connor Williams, whether it was Tyron Smith, whether it was across the offensive line board. Every time there was kind of a big play, there was a penalty to wipe away the momentum, right? So he wants to get more discipline as any NFL team should. But it sounds like Mike McCarthy wants to keep the same approach, same philosophy. So we'll see how that actually pans out when it comes to the offensive strategy between him and Kellen Moore, how they move forward. Stephen Jones had something to say, of course, right? Stephen Jones, when he grabs the mic, it's like, all right, bro, I'm about to head out and kind of catch a nap, right? But he spoke about the offseason. He says when it comes to the cap, there's a lot of dry powder, like puff, a lot of dry powder that, they necessarily don't have to make moves in the offseason because they're going to lean heavily on our young guys and our rookies, and they're confident in our rookies. which is a gift and a curse. He's talked about Micah Parsons last year, what Osa was able to do last year, but also Chauncey Golston in that conversation as well. But that doesn't happen with every rookie class, and we know that, right? Just as well as you can hit on a Micah Parsons or a Trayvon Diggs, you can brick with a a Taco, right? Or you can go with Tristan Hill and so on. So it isn't like you're guaranteed to hit when it comes to your young rookies when you're focusing just on the draft to kind of replenish your in-house and get you prepared for the season. So that's the philosophy. And I know a lot of Cowboys fans are upset because it sounds like the Cowboys aren't focused on right now. They're more talking about the future cap, future guys that they have to sign. Speaking of future guys they have to sign, Dalton Schultz. Stephen Jones kind of mentioned Dalton Schultz and said that he's going to be a Dallas Cowboy for a long time. Jerry said that they tried to work out a deal. They just didn't come down to terms within the range. So that's why Dalton Schultz is on the franchise tag, but they're confident that Dalton Schultz will be signed and will be a Dallas Cowboy. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. I disagree, but we shall see. But one thing I do want to put out there, Mike McCarthy mentioned this as well today. When he was in Green Bay, they didn't sign big name free agents, right? So you might have to think, I know Stephen Jones kind of has this philosophy of playing young guys, right? And not going heavily on free agency, right? But maybe this is part of Mike McCarthy's DNA and his philosophy as well. And if they're just starting to coexist while we're seeing, the off seasons that we're having, because Jerry Jones talked about they had a tremendous off season. They brought in a lot of guys that can help us. They brought in 3 guys. 1, 2, 3, right? They brought in Fowler, they brought in James Washington, and I think the other guy was like a special teams running back or something like that. I really can't even think of it, right? That's out of house, right? And so Jerry Jones has mentioned he's a lot more confident in the team this year than he was last year. And they asked him why. Why, Jerry? Why are you more confident in this year's team versus last year's team? And he mentioned Mike McCarthy. And I'm just like, yeah, okay. All right. So there was a lot going on when it comes to camp today. Stephen Jones did kind of hint when it came to the wide receiver room, right, about factoring Tony Pollard, giving Tony Pollard work as a wide receiver. So this could finally be the year we could see Tony Pollard being utilized in the passing game. We shall see. I think they're going to have to. On another note, he mentioned that Michael Gallup and also Jabril Cox will not be ready for camp, and so he didn't give a timetable for return. But things kicked off in traditional Dallas Cowboys fashion. Here we are. Mike McCarthy was sitting up there with his micro managers, Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones, kind of chucking it up, doing that thing. I kind of hate this. I would rather just talk to the coaches versus Jerry and Stephen being up there, but we know how things go in Dallas, and so it is just what it is, man. It's your boy J Tuck. Comment, like, subscribe, turn on that notification bell because we are in camp. We are all steam ahead. We're going to be dropping videos, live shows. I appreciate everyone who tuned in last night for the live show. We had a blast answering all your questions, and we're going to continue that trend, man. So I want everyone to stay safe, stay blessed, stay encouraged. And here we go, Cowboys Nation. Peace.